A bowl of rice. In order for a bowl of rice to get to your table, the heavens must have let the sun shine to grow the rice paddy and scattered just enough rain to wet the shoots. The earth must have opened its heart to let the rice spread its roots. And the wind must have blown cool breezes to ripen the crops. The whole process must be teeming with the sweat of the farmer who planted the rice in spring, pulled the weeds in summer, and harvested the crops in fall, and with the care of the one who made the warm bowl of rice, soaking it and boiling it. Not only that, but in order for today's farming and the table in front of you to exist, there had to be vertical accumulation of technologies from numerous ancestors and traditions. Horizontally, there were precious efforts by people in the modern age to produce farming tools, fertilizers, threshers, a rice mill, kitchen utensils, fuel, and so on. Therefore, how can you call a bowl of rice yours just because you bought it with your own money? Trace its history. In a bowl of rice, there is the grace of the entire human race and the whole universe. Thus, when you face a bowl of rice, you should first offer it up to Buddha, who is the guiding light of the human race and of nature. Be grateful to the ones who provide the meal, while invoking a one to serve Buddha well. Do this not only with the food, but also with the clothes, books, and shoes. If you offer them all up to Buddha first and then use them, isn't that living in accord with the Dharma? Enlightened being walks one step ahead of the ordinary being. We often force others to do things that we haven't tried ourselves. We make them do things that are unreasonable. If you force others to do things that you cannot do, you imprint that action in your mind. As a result, in the future, you'll be forced by others to do an impossible job. How burdensome and painful your mind will be when that happens. Likewise, you should not force others to do tasks that you were able to do previously but cannot do now. If you make others do a difficult job that you cannot handle in your present situation, you imprint sorrow in your mind. Teachers should not present their students with the subjects that are too difficult. A person who teaches others should be just one step ahead of his or her students. You have to lead them closely to give them the hope of being able to follow you. Also, in order to avoid showing too much of gap between you and your students, you must cleanse yourself of your ego. Lead others by letting them learn one thing and realize one thing. Have them listen to your one Dharma lecture and also practice it. Walk just one step ahead of them. Then, just as a puppy follows a piece of fish, they will follow you one step at a time, learning and practicing to gain all sorts of benefits. An enlightened being walks one step ahead of an ordinary being. Mistake of teaching others. After Master Zhaozu's spiritual practice had matured, he traveled around China and taught many students. Once he went to see his friend at a monastery in the Shandong area. His friend's 12-year-old novice monk brought 2.5 wheat cakes on a tray. Since Master Zhaozu was the guest, Master Zhaozu thought the young monk would serve him first. But the novice monk served the cake to his master first. Master Zhaozu thought that now the young monk would serve him the other one, and that the young monk would take the half. But the young monk did not offer the cake to Master Zhaozu at all. Instead, he put the 1.5 rice cakes in front of himself and started eating. Because Master Zhaozu liked to teach others, He said sarcastically to his friend, "My friend, you should teach that child well." His friend answered, "I do not want to ruin him by trying to correct his wrongs." At that moment, Master Xiaozu had a great awakening. He looked back at his past and thought to himself, "How many times have I taught people to go the wrong way?" That novice monk accumulated merit by awakening a master. If a teacher molds his or her students with the intention of making Buddha happy, it is a radiant deed. But if he or she says, "I am molding them and I am teaching them," then it is the ego that is doing the teaching. The students feel uncomfortable and they inherit the ignorance of their teachers. At such times, if the negative karmic hindrances of the teacher and the students clash with one another, the act of teaching cannot be a virtuous act. How often people bind and agonize others in the name of teaching. A Buddha who is perfect can see the past, present, and the future of his student with his wisdom eye, and therefore can wisely lead the student according to the life the student has led. If you are not able to do that, you could lead a student in the wrong direction forever, or your student might end up feeling hostile towards you. When someone asks you a question, answer him or her sincerely. And when you are not asked, do not force your teaching upon others. If you really want to teach, teach them after shedding yourself of the ego to teach. And then others will not be burdened by learning from you. For if you teach others only with your ego's desire to teach, you will be annoyed when others do not accept your lessons. Where there is annoyance, there cannot be the work of Buddha. At such a time, you should realize your limitations as a teacher and surrender that annoyance.